The Bears have found their secret weapon. One position of need this past offseason was solved. Now the unit is excelling at a high level. One individual is responsible for that. Welcome to Bears Digest, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Dylan Guinzy. Thank you for joining once again. If you have not subscribed already, please do so. 85.9% of watchers over the last month are not subscribed. That is down from our previous number, so we're doing good there. But of course, we want to keep chopping at that number and getting that down as low as possible so all our subscribers are watching. But if you want to stay up to date on news, rumors, game reactions, everything that you can think of, we're going to be here with it every step of the way. The Bears are hot. We're going into a big Black Friday game, 8-3. Everything on the line here in prime time. It's going to be awesome to watch, and it's going to be so fun. I cannot wait. Let me know down below, guys, what your score predictions are. I always like hearing from you guys in the comments and interacting with you guys as much as I possibly can. With tomorrow being Thanksgiving, I hope everybody has a happy holidays. We're not going to be releasing a video here tomorrow, so we're going to cover everything here today before the game. So let me know down below what your score predictions are for this one against the Eagles. But the contents of today's video overall, we're going to be discussing the Bears' offensive line unit and one specific individual that we can thank for all the successes. Obviously, we had a lot of additions in the offseason, trades, draft. Ben Johnson is, on board at that point, and he expressed his interest in having a great offensive line and that being an integral piece to his offense and their success. But there was one key hire that Ben Johnson made that has made all the world of difference. So we're going to get right into that, of course, here today. The first thing that we're touching on is the Bears' offensive line production. This is via PFF. Through about the midway of the season, or past the midway mark of the season, the Bears were ranked number 8 in offensive line play. All metrics suggesting that the Bears' offensive line is now a top 5 unit, especially after the Pittsburgh Steelers game. The one sack taken in that game was, phenomenal, and the only sack that you gave up was TJ Watt. After that point, he never really got hit, and he never really got touched, and the Bears' offensive line was phenomenal in the Steelers game. You can point to this offensive line being pretty much a juggernaut already, way quicker than we expected. But the main man and the main cause of that is this man right here, Dan Roushar. He was hired in this offseason. Not a lot of people know about him unless you've really been focused in on the Bears and all their hires and everything that Ben Johnson has done with this team. But Dan Roushar has been in this game for 41 plus years, and he has been an offensive line coach at a variety of different spots. And this guy is getting this unit to excel at a very, very high level. The things that he demands out of his offensive linemen and the guys playing for him is much higher than you would see at a lot of other places. A lot of other places take these hires a little bit less than what Ben Johnson and the Bears did. They put this at the forefront of their minds when accepting this job and coming to the Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson initially expressed confidence in crafting a plan with general manager Ryan Poles. Less than 2 weeks later, that led to hiring Roushar, who had not worked with Johnson previously, to lead the way. When Johnson called Roushar, he had recently retired after a 2-year stint as Tulane's offensive line coach. The pullback into the business was too much to resist for Roushar, who initially transitioned into a student assistant role at NIU under Bill Mallory in 1983 and continued in that role the next year under Lee Corso. He had tried the retirement thing briefly after then New Orleans Saints coach Dennis Allen fired him following the 2022 season. So isn't that weird, right? Our current defensive coordinator fired this man just a couple of years ago before he went to Tulane to be their offensive line coach, and he decided to come back. I don't know the reasons why Dennis Allen fired him. Definitely an interesting thing and an interesting point for sure. But it's very cool, and I'm glad that Dan Roushar is back in the fold. So let's talk a little bit more about that, especially the process that went into it. When Tulane's season ended with the Gasparilla Bowl last December 20th, Roushar figured it had been a heck of a 41-year run, one that included a decade with the Saints, two stints each at Illinois and NIU, and 5 other college stops. 5 weeks later, out of the blue, Johnson called with a question: is this something that you are interested in? The line coach was a critical hire for Ben Johnson, who couldn't bring the Lions' Hank Fraley with him in addition to Roushar. The Bears brought in Penn State's Trotwain and Ohio State's Justin Fry, who ended up being hired from or by the Arizona Cardinals. It was a pivotal decision for Johnson too, with his offense rooted in a powerful running game. Coming from the Lions, who were blessed with an elite O-line, Johnson knew it was a hire he had to get right. When I listen to some of these other coaches who I think are outstanding and are going to be really good coaches for a long time, I knew that there was going to be a learning curve, Johnson said. When Dan got up there, it was like we were speaking the same language, which for a first-time head coach, not sure necessarily all the issues that I was going to run into, I thought that was going to be a big deal. So, of course, Ben Johnson hiring this man was so important to kick off everything that Ben Johnson wanted to do. In his offense specifically, their run game is key, and now we've seen that has been fixed. Ben Johnson and Dan Roushar have been working hand in hand with all of that throughout this whole entire season, and bringing him on board with that much experience just helped Ben Johnson kind of excel and speed up that process. Obviously, Detroit had amazing offensive linemen, good running backs, everything like that. It was all built. But at the same time, your coaching can really, really elevate the players that you do have. So just midway through the season here, the Bears' offensive line rankings, Drew Dahlman, third among centers. Darnell Wright is third among right tackles. Joe Thuney is seventh among left guards. Jonah Jackson is 10th among right guards. So everybody is top 10 in this unit besides the left tackle position, which obviously is kind of our one point of emphasis going into the offseason and things that, are a position that we need to get fixed and get right. And that's really the only weak spot of this offensive line. And you can credit Ben Johnson and Dan Roushar coming in here and establishing what they want to do and how they want to play. Darnell Wright is now playing his best ball. You could argue Drew Dahlman, even though he was an established center beforehand, he's playing his best ball now. So these coaches, and Dan specifically, are elevating these players to an extremely high level. And that is a secret weapon for the Bears, considering that if you can get now Ozzie Trapillo to develop and buy into what Dan is selling, Theo Benedette, maybe draft another guy in the second round or the first round, whatever that may be, you're not pigeonholed into finding this all-star talent that is coach-proof, right? You can get somebody that fits the tools that we're looking for, and then Dan can really bring them up into speed and make them the player that we need specifically, and they can become talented in that way rather than just being some all-star, all-pro caliber talent coming out of the draft, right? You don't always want to pigeonhole yourself into just throwing a top 5 pick at a position because you absolutely need it the most. You want to also be able to take guys later in the draft, 4th, 5th, 6th round that can develop into stars, and that's how you get really good depth in a really good team. So Dan Roushar is a secret weapon for this team. It has been amazing to watch this offensive line succeed. We're going to get the biggest test for them this Friday against the Eagles, and I am super excited to see how they react and respond to that message and that matchup, especially if this offensive line was a weakness going into the year. We were all worried about the left tackle spot, and now it's kind of like in the distance, right? Like left tackle is still in need, but you're not out here talking about it every week. Like the offensive line, other than, some of the pre-snap penalties and different things that we dealt with early on in the year, you're not really noticing them all that much. And that's the exact thing that you want out of an offensive line. So they've been doing a phenomenal job there, and Dan Roushar is a lot to do with that. So, ladies and gentlemen, just wanted to come on here and talk about the offensive line and how amazing that they have been playing. This Friday is going to be very, very exciting, and I can't wait to sit down and watch that on Black Friday. But overall, before we go, guys, we are almost to 1,700 subscribers. I want to get there before the game starts on Friday, so please give me a hand in doing so there. I always appreciate the support getting to that mark and where we have got so far. So let's get to 1,700 before the Eagles game on Friday, and let's shock the world. As always, bear down.